Hello everybody, and welcome along to round 15 of the AOR Hype Energy F3 League. This week we have the Singapore Grand Prix to bring to you under the lights at the Marina Bay Street Circuit. Much like Monaco and Baku, the proximity of the barriers will be one of the biggest challenges that the drivers will have to face. And on top of that, the circuit is one of the longest and most complex on the calendar, and will be a true test of endurance as well as precision. As always, my name is Jacob Hancox, and myself and Julio Massa have the pleasure of bringing you all the action today. I think we're just about into the qualifying. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, good evening, to say good evening to everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. Terribly rude of me to cut you off when you're trying to greet the audience. My apologies.
No problem.
Here we go, though. Into the qualifying session we are, and it always looks lovely here in the night sky and under the lights at the circuit. Of course, I will have chat open next to me, so if any of you guys want to tell me anything, ask me any questions, ask Julio any questions, anything like that, feel free to do so, and we'll see what we're able to do. Had a couple of connection issues with the lobby earlier, but I think that's all been sorted out, so fingers crossed it's all going to go okay.
Yeah, I hope so as well. We have quite a bit of drivers already out on the track, of course. It's not the shortest lap, around 5.1 kilometers is the lap distance here, 23 corners, but it's always tricky to find what happened.
Okay, so one problem is my OBS does not seem to be picking up the F1 game, so the screen is black. So I cannot explain why that would happen.
It's just perfect, but let's hope it's teething issues or something like that.
I think I'm probably gonna have to restart my game at least. So do I have a spare invite? I do have one spare invite, so I'm gonna restart my game and hope that that works.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So, okay. Apologies for this, everybody. I'll try and get you guys. I'll give you guys some pictures to look at least while we wait.
So I will provide the sort of radio.
Yeah. Let everyone know what's happening while I try and work out what's going on.
So right now it's Kevin Bolash who has set the fastest lap of 1 minute 36.8, but it's all set on the hard tire. P2 right now belongs to ARC Ripson on the same compound. P3 for Waza, P4 Richie B, P5 Iceman, and P6 Csen. I think one of the Renault drivers spun out of turn 7, and that was Jezza on his outlap. Yeah, so as I've said, 7 drivers with lap times, and already even 8 because Shotis has gone into P5 with a time of 1 minute 38.8. Also on hard tire, a lot of hard tires at the beginning of the session. As probably always, Danny Todd goes into P1, 1 minute 36.8 on medium compound this time, but still, it's the beginning of the session. We are waiting for Camille Common, who is actually coming through turns 22 and 23, and let's see what is his lap time. And it's invalidated because we don't see him popping up at the top of the leaderboard, because he set a time of 1 minute 36.890, which would have taken him into P2. But yeah, invalidated lap time. Jezza has lost his front wing after spinning out of turn 7, and he is blocking one of the Williams scouts, and it's Andinator, but Andinator has aborted his lap time. Andinator and AOR Grzesiu are the only drivers who have taken the soft tire for the beginning of the session. As just a reminder for you, we have C3, C4, and C5 tire compounds available today at Marina Bay Street Circuit, so the softest allocation possible. And right now, the first part of the qualifying session is sort of over. The drivers will return to the pit lane, I imagine, or not, because Vaza seems to be on a push lap again. He is in P4, remember, and with a time of 1 minute 37.863, a full second behind Danny Todd, but Danny Todd is on a one-step softer tire. Migrating host, I don't know why, but Aladar has joined, so
Yeah.
maybe that means that you're back and your OBS is recognizing the game at least.
Here's hoping. I'm just going to switch it over and see. It's the real test to see if it is recognizing the game or not. Currently loading into the game. I hope that I'm not caused the host migration. That doesn't sound like it's very good news, but
yeah.
JSR has left the session. Okay,
so that may be why the host migration information just popped up on the screen.
Yes, I think he does usually host the lobbies, so that is...
Yeah, so that might be a problem. Meanwhile, Kevin Bolash has taken P1, 136.556. This is fastest lap time, and Vaza has aborted his lap time. He has come into the pit lane. So yeah, Kevin Bolash on a 3-lap-old hard tire has set the fastest lap, and he is 0.3 of a second faster than Danny Todd and a full second faster than Ripson. And the gaps are fairly big, but it's still 10 minutes to go in the qualifying session, so a lot of things will change, a lot of drivers will improve. So let's just wait and see what do they do later on in the session.
Absolutely, yeah. And the good news is that OBS is now working and is capturing the game. So I don't know why it refused to do so on the previous attempt, but now all seems to be working. So I hope that nothing else is wrong with the stream. Please let me know in chat if there is, but I think everything is okay. As you mentioned, Bolash Kevin currently sitting there at the top. Danny in second, standing in for the Renault team. He is a reserve driver in the league, and Shad just put himself up into third. Of course, these are the hard tyre exchanges we're quite used to seeing in the opening stages of qualifying. Just drivers getting their eye in, getting a bit of practice on the hardest compound tyre, and not really looking to set the fastest lap times.
Yeah, and also remember that on this track, the tyre degradation is fairly high, so most of the top drivers will avoid the softest compounds in qualifying sessions, so we might see a surprise pole setter. But those pole setters who will set their lap times on a soft compound tire, they will be, I don't know, sort of destined to go onto a 2-stop strategy, or maybe a slower 1-stop with used soft tires at the beginning and then a hard tires later on in the session. So it's a little bit more practical to qualify on medium tires and start a little bit more towards the back of the top 10. I think that's the optimal strategy here.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, strategy can be very, very critical around here as well. In a track that's really hard to pass other drivers on track, not that many overtaking opportunities around here. Casting them in the pit stops can be ever more important as a result of that. As we see Schultes coming around the final corner now, not taking that one very well. In fact, he was diving into the pit, so that explains why.
Yeah, he was driving to the pit lane because he's lost his front wing earlier on in the
Oh,
lap.
yes, indeed, of course.
So, yeah, that might explain why he did take that weird line. JS has returned to the session, so maybe the host migration won't be an issue anymore. And we can only see four cars on soft tire. It's Andinator, it's Grzesiu, it's Krusix, and Danitar. The rest of the drivers will take on the medium compound right now because, 7 minutes into the session, 7 minutes from the end of the session, really. It's like, 9 minutes into the session, or my math is really bad. 11 minutes into the session. That's more like it. Kamil Common has left the session, so I think he will have to wait. He still has 7 minutes to rejoin.
Yeah, he'll be hoping that he can get back into the session as quick as possible. Grzesiu, by the way, it's great to have a commentator alongside me who can pronounce Grzesiu correctly, because I certainly can't. Impossible name to pronounce, but nevertheless, he's been having a rough time of it over the recent weeks, particularly in qualifying, but not much better performances in the races either. Didn't manage to participate last week. And he'll be hoping for a bit of a return to form here in the Toro Rosso. Big corner cut as he heads on towards the Anderson Bridge, though, and that might have invalidated his time. I'm not entirely sure about that. Looks pretty neat through the hairpin, though. A bit unremarkable, but neat. Which sometimes is the better way to go. Sometimes it looks like, if it really looks like a driver's going really quickly and just about hanging on to it, oftentimes they're not going quite as quickly as the other guy next to him, who's just keeping it nice and neat and simple on the track. So this could be a decent lap from Grzesiu. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of decent laps, and as I say that, Grzesiu goes way off track, locking up and almost into the barrier there, so he's thrown that one away. Meanwhile, Andinator, speaking of decent laps, has put himself up into provisional pole on that set of soft tyres. First driver to do a lap on the soft tyres, and he's a second clear at the top.
Yeah, Grzesiu has lost a part of his front wing, so that may explain why he was wide in turn 16, 17 chicane. He has decided to stay out on the track, but his first lap was invalidated. Let's see what he does, but he goes wide in turn 2 again, and I think he cut the track there, but maybe the game let him off there, so let's see the next. Let him get away, of course, there, and let's see the next straight. And yeah, I think he will try to set a lap time because he is a bit under pressure. But let's see what he can do. Kamil Kowan has returned to us. He's rejoined the session, so let's see what he will do on the medium compound of tire and the yellow flag in sector 2 and sector 3. So,
that's
Ripson. I think it was just slowing drivers, but maybe if it's Ripson...
No, Ripson putting himself up into P2 is what I was going to say. But
Krusix put a superb lap time, 1 minute 34.4, of course, on a soft compound of tires. So right now we have a front row lockout for the Williams team, which is surprising, given knowing how the team looks in real life and how their season looked like. I mean, flip the table and Williams is at the top. Right now it was the real thing because Kevin Bolash has improved his lap time into 1 minute 35.2, and he is back in top 2.
Yeah, I think Andinator will be pretty disappointed with that lap time on the soft tyres. His teammate a full 1.1 seconds faster than him, and they've been pretty evenly matched throughout most of the races. Krusix has had very up and down form lately, coming 17th in the German Grand Prix, followed by a win in the Hungarian, and then back to 11th outside of the points in Belgium, and then 2nd in Italy. So he's really been up and down, hot and cold. And this is looking like it's going to break that trend, though, because if he followed the pattern, he'd be on for a cold race here. But given that he's on provisional pole, that doesn't necessarily look all that likely. So it's a good start to the weekend for the leader of the two German Williams drivers. Andinator is sitting down in 4th at the moment, though Andinator is the one who's ahead in the championship. Currently still the championship leader, 1 point clear of Bolash Kevin at the very top of the standings. Camille Common down in third with Kruzix himself in fourth. Wazza is also up there in fifth, and he's set a decent lap time on those medium tyres to only be 1/10 of a second behind Bolashkevin. That's a good effort from the Mercedes driver. Is there anyone else going particularly quickly out here on the moment? I'm going to stick on board with Shad, because I've received a tip off in chat that Shad will be someone to watch. Apparently the Frenchman goes well around these city streets, and we'll have to see whether that comes to be the truth or not as he heads into the very final section of the lap now. Looks all pretty neat and tidy.
Yeah, go on, because he has improved by 8/10 after 2 sectors, and he is up into P5, but still 3/10 off Andinator's lap time on soft tires and a full half a second behind Vazza in P3.
Yeah, I would put that lap as a good, not great. It's nothing that's going to challenge his teammate Kevin up ahead. He's still 5/10 of a second, half a second away from doing that. And really, that's kind of the... If you're on the medium tyres, Bolashkevin's current lap time is what's effectively pole position. You're not going to be able to aim for Kruzix's lap time. That's really just unattainable if you're on those medium tyres.
And Shotis might set a really good lap time because he has improved his previous personal best by 1.8 seconds after 2 sectors. He only has turn 22 and 23 to negotiate, and let's see what is his lap time, but it's only... So, yeah, improvement by 2.7 seconds, but he is 9/10 of a second behind Bolashkevin, who has retired from the session already.
I'm going to see what Camille is up to. Is he on a push lap? He looks to be on a push lap at the moment. Got his ERS mode all the way up into overtake as he heads down the straight here. Ooh, does get it slowed down. I thought he was going to go straight on there, but he did get it slowed down, braking very late indeed as he heads in towards the final section of the lap now through the Esplanade. Long right-hander there, really satisfactory. If you can get your wheel hooked up onto that curbing on the left-hand side, it really does help you around through that little tunnel section. Now just one more chicane to go, and then the final couple of corners. Ooh, and he holds onto it just about. There was a kick of oversteer on the exit, though, and the wall loomed large. But he held onto it, and across the line he comes. Where's it going to put him? It's up into fourth. What a response in the face of adversity, struggling to connect to the session. It looked like it was all going wrong for Camille, but that is one hell of a recovery from the Polish driver in the Red Bull.
Yes, and he's only 26 thousandths behind Vazza, and 132 thousandths behind Bolashkevin. But yes, remember that Camille Common has won the last 2 races this season, so he is like the man on the top form, and let's see if he can go for that 3rd win. It's still a long race ahead of us, so he might have a shot at the win, but let's see how it all turns out. Vazza has retired from the session as well. Let's see who is close to finishing his lap time. And,
currently on board with Andinator. He's not quite towards the end of the lap, but he is on those soft tyres, so he is gunning for pole position here. He wants to take it away from his teammate, going through the tunnel. It's looking fine. Again, this looks like an okay lap, but it doesn't look like it's really setting the world alight for Andinator here. Not out of control of the car in any way, though, and pretty well committed through the final couple of corners. And it's only about half a second's improvement, nowhere near enough to bring him in touching distance of his teammates. So it looks like Kruzix is pretty comfortably on pole, unless someone, Greju, seems to be the only person with any chance of doing something about it, also out there on the soft tyres. He's only just started his lap, though.
Yes, but he is really out of shape. Wide in turn 7. Looks like he has a full front wing right now after the problems of the previous run. Remember that Andinator is in P2 still, so that means he's starting from the front row. Meanwhile, Kamil Komoń has improved. He has gone into P3, and Grzesiu had a big moment in turn 10. I think he touched the wall.
Oh, even bigger moment there.
And that's over, I think. It's all over for him. Yeah, he's around in turn 13, I think. Yeah, turn 13, going out of the Anderson Bridge. But yeah, that's over for Grzesiu. He will start from P16. Meanwhile, Kruzix and Andinator, they have the front row lockout for now. Kamil Komoń will be the highest starter on the medium compound of tire, of course, and we still have only ARC Ripson, who is finishing his lap time, but it's only P5 for him. And Jez, I think he was around, he was around on his final lap out of turn 5. He spun and he will start from P15. So that's it for the qualifying session.
Yeah, and it is the two Williams boys up there in first and second. But of course, they were the ones who set their lap times on the soft tyres. No one else actually managed to complete a lap time on those tyres. So it makes sense that they are 1 and 2 here, and expect to see them dropping down the order when it comes to the race, because they have compromised their strategy by going for gold in the qualifying session. Pretty disappointing qualifying from the Renault boys, down in 14th and 15th. One of them is a reserve driver, so he's only standing in for Renault. But Danny, who was looking solid at the opening exchanges in the qualifying session, he was up there in second for a while, dropping all the way down to 14th. And Jezza didn't manage to improve on the time he set on the hard tyre, so that's not good news for him. Camille Common is in what will effectively be pole position once we get to the race. He is the lead driver on the medium tyres, with Bolash Kevin just behind. So those probably are going to be our two championship protagonists coming towards the end of the season, and they are alongside each other on the second row. Rips and Wazza, Shad, Richie V, Schultes, and Hooper once again just on the fringes of the top 10.
And we'll have a really interesting race today. Two drivers only on the soft compound of tyre, but the two that have locked out the front row. I'm interested. I'm curious if they are going to go on onto a two-stop strategy, or will they try to do a one-stopper, but with the use of hard tire instead of just putting a medium compound. Still interesting, and I don't know, because we don't have the weather. What happened?
The game has put me into a car.
Oh my god! Yeah, it has.
Which is not very good news.
What's your strategy for this race? You can tell us.
That is a great question. I'm afraid I don't know. I hadn't thought about it too much.
And what's your setup? Have you set your car more to be more aggressive on the overtakes, or maybe to be a little bit better in the dirt year, knowing that you will start from P17?
I've decided to go for the default setup this time around as a, okay, I'm not exactly sure what I should do in this situation. I kind of have to do the formation lap, I think.
Yeah,
I can't retire from the formation lap, so...
Yeah, that's true. You have to retire as soon as the race starts, I think, so... Again, we will have sort of a radio transmission, a radio broadcast from the first few corners, but you'll definitely
have to take it away for the first few corners, because I'm not going to be able to see what's going on out there. Jeff's letting me know that no rain is currently expected, so that's something we can actually use going into the race. So at least we picked up something useful out of this. But
yeah, that's always useful. The weather situation, and only two drivers, as we've said previously, on the soft compound of tire, and it's Chris Hicks and Andenator. Camille Coleman, Kevin Bolash, Ripson, Vaza Shad, Richie B. Schultes, Hooper, and Seasent have chosen the medium compound to start with, and Iceman, JSR, Danitar, Jezza, and Grzesiu have decided to start on hard tire. Obviously, Alada is not racing with us. He will retire as soon as possible, hopefully, but maybe he wants to become the new star of F3 and show everyone else how it's done.
Not judging by this performance on my outlap, I managed to get stuck in the wall there, and the game has decided to give me a manual gearbox as well, which I'm not used to driving with, so that will explain why this is quite such an awful lap everyone's getting to see me drive. This is rather embarrassing, something I did not expect to be doing on the stream, but that's okay.
The problem is that the drivers have
lined up. Yeah, I'm trying to get around there as quick as I possibly can. Oh, I've spun out. That's not very good news.
That's very good news. Grzesiu is going through the final corners.
Alright.
You are still...
There we go. Okay, so the AI has taken over for me, so that's great news. I can only apologise to any of the actual drivers for that one. This is... not my plan.
That's a long wait for the last car, but it will let us get a very interesting race start. But let's see what happens. 16 drivers plus a commentator in the car. 5 red lights are now away, and we go And away we go for the Singapore Grand Prix, of course, and it's Undernator who will attack Crucix into turn 1. Camille Common is in P3, and he will try to stick his nose down the inside into turn 2. Can he already take that second place? Yes, he can, but he will have to make it stick around the outside of turn 5, and he makes it stick. Of course, Alada has retired, and already Vaza has retired as well. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, there was a massive incident. No, I wasn't involved, I'd like to point that out, but there was a massive incident at the back of the field into turn 1. Huge crash between Waza and I think it was Greju. I was busy trying to retire, but I saw a lot of carbon fiber going flying. So that was very interesting. And Waza has actually DNF'd straight out of the race from it. So that's terrible news for him.
That's terrible. That's terrible. I didn't see what was going on there because I was focused on the fight at the top of the grid between Camille Common and Crucix as well, but also between Undernator and Crucix because Undernator pushed Crucix wide into turn 2. That's why Camille Common tried to overtake the Williams driver into turn 3, and it worked out brilliantly for him, of course, because he is now in P2. He is between the Williams drivers, and he is right now the man who will push for the win already, who can break away from the guys behind him. Ribson has overtaken Kevin Bolash at the start, so that also put another car between him and his main championship rival right now.
Yeah, not a good start for Kevin. He will not be too pleased with that in the pink car there as he heads now in towards turn 1, and he's stuck behind the rear wing of Ripson, and you've got to feel that Kevin would likely be faster than Ripson, although it was a really good qualifying performance from Ripson to be very close to Bolash Kevin and Camille Common's times. A great job from Camille to actually qualify ahead of Bolash Kevin when he was only able to do 2 flying laps and one straight after the other as well. But here comes Kevin. Looks like he's already trying to make the move on the McLaren up ahead. Can he stick his nose up the inside? Yes, he can, but not well enough, and actually great defensive driving from Ripson there, and he shows Bolash Kevin that he is not to be messed with, and he will not be letting him through just because he's a championship contender.
Exactly, and I think Camille Common has better pace than Undernator ahead of him. Looks like either Camille Common has switched on his tires immediately, or it's just that Undernator's tires are already in a worse state than the Polish Red Bull's drivers. Tires are right now as well, but he goes really deep into turn 14, Camille Common that was, and a big lockup there, but somehow kept it out of the wall. Interestingly, let's see if the walls don't start to get onto the track, because I've seen issues like that, and we've had part of the walls lying on the track, and that has caused some drivers to DNF in various races, so let's watch out for that. Hopefully that doesn't happen here. Camille Common has set the fastest lap time of the race, but it's Crucix already who has beaten that lap time. We have a we have a group in top 3, of course, and the Nater, Camille Common and Crucix, they will all form a short train fighting for that P1. Meanwhile, Ribson is at the head of the another train.
Yeah, the car's jittering around a little bit for me. I'm very sorry about that. There's nothing I can do about that. I think I'm just having a few connection issues with the lobby, but you can see battling here into turn 4. It's Camille and Undernator, and actually Undernator's run deep. Well, can Camille stick it around the outside? No, he goes for the switchback instead, and the Williams driver's in the wall. He's lost it completely. He's lost significant amounts of his front wing, if not the whole thing. His teammate got through unscathed, I believe. But Undernator now suddenly, from battling for first, he's battling for 8th, and no, and it's Sissant as well. Sissant's been involved in it as well after Undernator just lost it on the curbing there. Sissant has got away without too much damage, but he has some damage to his right front wing there. He's lost his end plates. Can he nurse it back to the pits without any further issue? But that's such a tragedy for Sissant. 2 DNFs in the last 3 races, and this time it's through no fault of his own that he's had an incident, and once again Undernator into the wall towards the back. The other Alfa Romeo, Iceman, having a bit of a moment with him there as well, but it looks like he's got away from that unscathed at the very least. But Undernator becoming a bit of a menace for the drivers in the field at the moment, considering how they had to avoid him just then.
A moving chicane, that is. I think Crucix has also some problems with the front wing. Yes, he has missing a front wing left end plate. So it's a great situation for Camille Common. He is a long way ahead of the Williams driver, and the Williams driver is right now struggling with his front wing, front grip issue as well. And Ripson in P3, he will have to defend from Kevin Bolash. Of course, Season comes into the pit lane. That's obvious after that incident coming out of turn 9, and also Undernator comes. We all know why he comes into the pit lane.
Yes, indeed. Quite a few drivers with damage in the early stages of this race. We saw Kruzix running very, very wide in the final couple of corners. That was because of the understeer that the lack of his front end plate was giving him. Hopefully he'll be able to nurse it until it gets to the point where he needs to get off of those soft tyres. But really, that's such a tragic way for this race to have gone for the Williams boys. They tried to do something different by qualifying on the soft tyres, rolled the dice, and it has not paid off for them after Andernator found himself in the wall and Kruzix could do nothing to avoid the rear end of his teammate. Yellow flags in Sector 1, don't know exactly who that's for, but that might just be for Sissant and Andernator.
That was Undernator coming out of turn 1, and he's already lost the front wing left end plate.
Ooh.
So
Meanwhile, battle for second place here as Kruzix is trying to defend from Rips, and the McLaren driver trying to waste no time in getting past the beleaguered and damaged Williams, but still Kruzix keeps himself alongside, and Andernator is now going to worry about Bolash Kevin instead. Bolash Kevin decides that he's not going to stick it up the inside of what is a rapidly closing angle onto that bridge there, and that is not somewhere you want to stick your nose in. So sensible driving from the Hungarian, and Ripson will be frustrated by the fact that he's bottled up behind a very damaged Williams, and now Kruzix does the sensible thing, dives into the pits at the end of lap 5.
And Camille Common has opened up a huge lead for the standards of this tier, almost 4.5 seconds ahead Ripson. That's huge. That's really huge.
Yeah, no, honestly, he has been absolutely gifted a huge margin at the front of the field by Kruzix holding up these guys, and by just the issues between Andernator and Kruzix in general. These guys have been held up so much by the two Williamses, and also you've got to feel that Bolash Kevin and Shad, the two Racing Points, really do have the pace over Ripson at the moment. They just can't prove it because they can't get past the McLaren driver themselves, and he's got enough pace that he is able to defend from them. He's not got damage on his car, so they don't have that advantage over him either, and they need to get past him as quick as they possibly can. But actually the gap to Camille, it was 4.7 at the start of this lap, wasn't it? It's now 4.2 all of a sudden.
And I think they have to think outside the box. They have to find some interesting plays. Undernator has retired from the session, so the championship leader is out of the race already on lap 5. But I think that Kevin Bolash and Shad have to find an unorthodox place to overtake ARC Ripson. I think Ripson is building up too big of a lead through Sector 3 that it's impossible for the of course Racing Point drivers to overcome it with the help of DRS on the start-finish straight and on the straight between turns 5 and 7.
What's fascinating here, though, is Ripson is slowly but surely taking micro chunks out of Camille Common's lead. It's down to 3.9 seconds now, and the McLaren driver is faster than the Red Bull driver at this stage of the race. Camille probably holding onto his tyres. He knows he has this margin, so he may as well play it safe, try and eke those tyres out for as long as he possibly can, and make sure that he doesn't lose out by damaging the tyres too much in the opening stage of the race. Because he has this buffer to play with, he can afford to do that sort of thing.
And Ripson had a huge moment coming out of turn 23 out of the final corner of the last lap. But let's forget about it for a moment, because Kevin Bolash will try to overtake round the outside in turn 7, and he makes it stick. Will Ripson try come back? No. So that's Kevin Bolash into P2, and let's see what's the true pace of the Racing Point driver.
I'm also interested to see what Shad can do as well. Now, he has the opportunity to try and make it past Ripson as well, and he's really been keeping up with them very easily in the second Racing Point, and we received the tip-off in chat, of course, that he has pace around here. He's fast around this circuit, something of a Singapore specialist, and we'll see what he's able to do. One podium finish to his name so far this season, but if he could move himself up into third here, he'd be in contention for another one.
Yes, indeed. So let's see. But still, Ripson... Kevin Bolash can't build any gap right now, and he is losing time to Camille Common. So the Red Bull's driver pace is really, really good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Camille is just maintaining his lead exactly where he wants it. I feel like he's got this race completely under control. Of course, longest race in terms of race time in the calendar. So if ever there was a race where you had enough time to try and regain the time you'd lost early in the race, this would be it. But it's still a massive ask to close down 4.6 seconds. And you've got to feel that Bolash Kevin absolutely has to undercut Camille at some point in this race. He's got to pit as early as he possibly can and try and get as many laps in this race on the fresh set of tyres. Hooper leaving the session down in 11th at the moment. Don't know what's happened there. Hopefully he'll be able to get back into the race soon as Grzesiu goes past the ghosted AI driver.
Exactly, but Grzesiu has also lost a huge amount of time during the opening laps of the race. Meanwhile, Danitard has overtaken JSR. I was trying to say that JSR was the fastest driver, and Grzesiu has gone round, actually. I don't know what happened there, but he just seems to have lost the rear and have a big damage to his front wing, especially the right hand side part of it. But yeah, it was Danitard who was, of course, it was JSR during the first laps of the race, who was the fastest driver from those who have started on the hard compound of tire. But meanwhile, it has been Danitard who has taken the lead in that group, but it's still P7, some at least like 5 seconds behind Shoulders. I'm estimating the gap because I can see because the game has sort of decided not to show me the correct gap between P6 and P7 right now.
Yes, no, it's done the same thing for me as well, which is interesting, so that's quite unfortunate. Shad, meanwhile, currently it says he's 0.7 of a second or thereabouts behind Ripson, and that looks about right to me. Not really making much of an impression all of a sudden on the McLaren. He looked like he really could keep up with Kevin and Ripson whenever Kevin was stuck behind Ripson, but now that Kevin's the one in the lead and Ripson's the one chasing, Shad seems to be dropping off a little bit further from the back of them than I would have expected. Not that far, of course. He's still very much within DRS range of the McLaren ahead, and it could just be that he's backing off, just preserving the tyres for a little bit before mounting a charge on the McLaren. He's down in 0 ERS mode at the moment. He's got a lot more battery charge available to him at the moment compared to Ripson. Ripson down in 40%, and wow, big moment under traction there for the McLaren driver. He's going to be under pressure. Surely this is Shad's opportunity to try and crank up that battery power. He does it for a brief moment, but not a long enough straight here into this braking zone, and not a big enough braking zone either onto the Anderson Bridge. Now, can he sell it up the inside for the hairpin? It would be very brave if he does, and no, he does not. Tries to optimize his exit instead. Another DRS zone here. Will he be able to get past the McLaren driver? Not actually a DRS zone, my apologies. But he will not be able to get past the McLaren driver at this point in the track, and he'll have to sit down and wait for the rest of the lap. Now, no more real overtaking opportunities until you get to the very end of the lap and the start-finish straight.
It should be a DRS zone, but of course it isn't because the game hasn't been updated, of course. But yeah, someone was in the building. Yeah, that was Grzesiu, of course. I forgot what I was trying to say, but Ripson has had a few moments under traction already. It wasn't his first time on the last lap. I think he also, as I've said earlier, he had a moment coming out of turn 23 a few laps ago, and another moment I haven't talked about yet. But looks like Ripson either has a really tail-happy car, or his rear tires are overheating, or even too much worn. But well, let's see if Shad can try to overtake Ground the outside. A carbon copy of his teammate's move, but he will have to try to stick it down the inside into turn 8, and he can't overtake Ripson there, and he is still around the outside. A little bit of contact between them, but it's still Ripson who is ahead of Shad.
And now Richie B really closing up behind them as well in the Toro Rosso. We haven't said much about him. Haven't said much about him this season, to be honest, in the F3 races at least. But he has been a consistent point scorer. He's scored in every race he's participated in this season so far, the last 4 races, of course. It's only been 4 races that most of these drivers have been in the F3 League after the leagues were reshuffled mid-season. But Richie B has scored points at every single one of the races he's participated in. Only a 10th last time out, and he'll be hoping to improve on that, and currently sitting in 5th and looking at 3rd position, not too far up the road. He'll be thinking that he can definitely improve on that. He'll be riding a bit of a wave of confidence as well, because yesterday in the AOR F2 Sprint League, he won the feature race in Austria, so he will be thinking that he is kind of on top of the world at the moment, and he'll definitely have that confidence in him to at least take a podium here if he can just catch up to Shad and Ripson. Oh no, wow, he fakes going into the pits. Shad dives into the pits at the last moment. Didn't look like he was going to. Richie B had to back out of it instead to either avoid hitting the Racing Point driver or just to try and do the opposite to him, to try and either get the undercut or, if he wasn't going to be able to do so, to get the overcut instead. Interesting there, but it's lost him a lot of time doing that.
Exactly. So right now it means that he is down into P10 at least. Crucix, let's see where he is at, because we've lost the Williams driver. We've lost a focus on him, but he is on hard tires, of course, and down in P10. Shad has returned to the track 5 seconds behind Crucix in P11 on a hard compound tire. So yeah, Crucix is trying to do a one-stop work, and let's see what's the pace compared to Shad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Crucix can recover from this point in the race. He managed to get to the 5th lap of the race before coming into the pit, so that was at least something. He should, I think, be able to make those hard tyres last to the very end of the race, but his pace will not be optimal, that's for sure. I'd like to see him at least get back up into the points in some way, shape or form though, but maybe his as Greju gets a penalty for coming into the pit lane too fast. This is his 2nd entry to the pit lane, at least in this race. 40 seconds away from Hooper. Still ahead of Sissant though, because Sissant's having a lot of troubles as well.
And sorry, it's Camille Common who has entered the pit lane. I think that Sissant, I think he might be already lapped. Yeah, he has retired from the session as well. So only down to 13 drivers already. Very, very quick. And Camille Common, I think he was held in the pit lane for some time. I don't know if that was correct, but it looked like that to me. He will, of course, emerge ahead of Kevin Bolash. He will be behind Jezza right now. Let's see what's the gap between Camille Common and Kevin Bolash when exiting the pit lane. And I think it might be even bigger, apparently.
Even bigger, yeah.
6 seconds.
Yeah, no, Bolash Kevin. Camille was held up ever so slightly, but Bolash Kevin came in with a lot of other cars around him, and as a result, it seems to have been held a little bit longer in the Racing Point. So bad news for him. Crucix actually ahead of Shad and Ripson as well. Ripson, did he have front wing damage? I'm not entirely sure, but he's ended up behind Shad. No, they were pretty close on track. So Shad has just managed to successfully take the undercut on the McLaren driver. So that's good driving from the Frenchman in the Racing Point to come into the pits that 1 lap earlier. And Richie B still staying out, interestingly.
Meanwhile, Camille Common has led Iceman through. I mean, Iceman has led Camille Common through, of course. So Camille Common has already made up 1 place, and he will try to overtake Jezza coming down into turn 14. Will he try to stick it around the outside? He tries to stay there, very close to the wall, but he manages to avoid it, and he is ahead of Jezza up into P5. Next up, JSR, of course, and let's see what Richie B and Schultz do.
Yeah, Richie B is heading into the pits in the Toro Rosso. Led the race for almost a lap. Schultz is also heading into the pit. So it'll be interesting to see where Richie B comes out relative to Shad and Ripson. We saw how desperate he was not to pit on the same lap as Shad, and he stayed out 2 extra laps now. So he's going to be banking on that, paying dividends towards the end of the race when his tyres are 2 laps fresher. But it's really hard to pass around here, though plenty of drivers have been showing that it's possible. So we'll have to see where he ends up coming out relative to them. There is Richie B on the left-hand side, and here is Shad, and Shad picks up a 3-second time penalty in his haste to try and get past the Toro Rosso driver, and Richie B, wow, they bang wheels, and Shad has to get out of it, but Richie B's managed to make the move, and now Ripson trying to take advantage of that wheel-banging moment there, but Shad all the way around the outside. Good move from the Frenchman, and he's held on to it for the moment, but Ripson will have something to say about that as they head up towards turn 6 now. Major braking zone coming up, but no, he cannot do anything about it, so it is Richie B, Shad Chad and Ripson in that order, and something's happened to Danny.
Danny died, and he has retired from the session, but a AI car has taken over his car, and while it was reversing, it reversed onto the racing line and hit Kevin Bolash, who has just stopped on the track, I think, right now. Kevin Bolash has lost his front wing, so that might be a huge moment for the championship, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Bolash Kevin is not going to be scoring any points in this race. We saw him DNF once before. Yeah, going very, very slowly indeed. The AI has taken over his car. He DNF'd in Belgium under similar circumstances. One major error he made there. This wasn't anything of his fault, of course. Just a bit of really bad luck with the Renault blocking the track ahead of him. I caught a brief glimpse of the collision from on board Bolash Kevin's car, and it is tragic to see that happen to him in what was a relatively solid race. He wasn't on track for the win, I don't think, but he was definitely on track for P2, and that would have kept him comfortably ahead of Camille Common in the championship. But the gap between those two drivers going into this race, unless my maths is very much mistaken, was 25 points. And Camille is currently on track to take the full 25 points from this race. So he is looking to move himself ahead of Bolash Kevin in the championship if he takes the race win today.
And right now, Camille Common has set the fastest lap of the race, and he has overtaken JSR, so he takes the lead. I am actually trying to check the gaps at the top, so give me a moment, please, and I will let you know how the situation at the top of the standings looks like now. So of course, let's wait a moment for it to actually load up. And yes, it's Camille Common who has 68 points. Kevin Bolash has 83 points, so that's 15 points between them, and 84 points for Andinator. So right now it looks like Camille Common will take the lead in the standings with a lead of, let me think, right now it's 10 points ahead of, it would be 10 points ahead of Andinator. Remember that Camille Common right now has the fastest lap as well. And Kevin Bolash, he has retired from the race as well, so he will lose 11 points to Camille heading into Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a dream come true.
And Camille he has just put the hammer down, really, because it's another fastest lap of the race. I mean, wow. It's just wow.
Yeah, great, absolutely. Comes through to lap his compatriot Grezju. Not been a good race for the Toro Rosso driver. My grating host doesn't look like very good news to me, but hopefully that's nothing.
We've seen a lot of news today.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that sort of thing. Lobby seeming like he's having some issues, but we are clinging on to it at the moment. Bolash Kevin leading the session. He has retired from the race already. 6 drivers. Actually, I should say 5 drivers. One of those drivers is me. I don't count. 5 drivers have retired from this race so far. Only 11 cars left running, and Hooper, who is 46 seconds away from P9, the second lowest other than himself. In fact, it's been an AI car. I don't think Hooper ever regained the session. So no. Grezju is actually on track to score a point in this race, as long as he doesn't throw it into the wall at some point. Grezju is actually going to score his first points in a long time here in the F3 League, as long as he can just hold on to it, despite the fact that his race has been anything but clean.
Well, finally for Grezju, of course. But yeah, Hooper won't be classified in this race, no matter what right now, because it's been quite a long time since he has led the session. So yeah, Grezju will take that point unless something weird happens to him. We still have 3 drivers yet to pit, and that's JSR, Jezza, and Iceman. And Iceman and Jezza are fighting for P3 at the moment, but Krusix, interestingly, he is on course to take P2. Camille Common, another fastest lap. I mean, 139.5 compared to the fastest lap of the second fastest driver, which is 1 minute 40.194 set by Krusix. Looks really good, but of course, let's remember that I'm sorry, because Jezza and Iceman have collided, I think.
They kind of collided. If they did come together, it was only very slightly, but one of them was pushed wide by the other going into turn 1, and they both actually ended up running wide on the exit of that corner. It is the Renault of Jezza who has come out on top, though Iceman was trying to take the position away, so he'll have to try and do that once more. Krusix now coming up behind them and breaks a lot later than Iceman into the braking zone, gives the Macedonian driver something to think about on the exit as well, but he is able to hold on to the position for now. Kruzix needs to get past them as quickly as he possibly can, though his tyres are only 4 laps younger than Iceman. Iceman just completely gets out of it and lets Kruzix through, realizes he's not racing the Williams driver right now, but that does assume that Kruzix will be able to get to the end of the race on this set of tyres, which I don't think is necessarily certain, though I think it is likely.
I mean, it's likely, but they are already 10 laps old. He pitted on like lap 4 or lap 5, I think. So very early into the race, and those tires might explode coming into the end of the race. Hopefully they don't, of course.
Yeah.
But they will be pretty much on the limit of the life cycle. Meanwhile, Grzesiu gets another penalty. I don't know how many penalties did he get earlier, but I think I've seen his nickname popping up on the screen quite often.
Yes, I did say that it would be, if he just could keep it out of the walls, he'd be on track for a point-scoring finish, but it might be that he has to also stop the corner cutting before he gets disqualified for too many corner cutting warnings. I don't think it's got quite that severe at the moment, as Jezza also picking up a 3-second time penalty. Easy to do, particularly in the opening sector of this lap. There are plenty of places you can cut corners around here, and the game is pretty good at not letting you get away with it. Kruzix got a much better run. Jezza had a bit of a wiggle on coming out of turn 3 there, and Kruzix breezes straight past. That is not turn 3, of course, that is turn 5, or 4, I should say. But nevertheless, Kruzix has managed to get himself past Jezza, but he is so hopelessly far behind Camille Common right now. And he might even have to pit again. We're not even certain about that. So, at the very least, Camille is 16 seconds, 16, ahead of his nearest rival. And if Kruzix isn't actually his rival, that's more like 18 seconds to Richie B instead.
It's just driving from another world, actually. Outstanding. I mean, I'm lost for words right now, but yeah, that will be his 3rd win in a row, of course, and he will take the championship lead. I don't think he will have the fastest lap point, of course, because the drivers like JSR, Kruzix, I mean not Kruzix, but Jezza and Iceman, they have to pit again. They will put on at least the medium compound of tire, or maybe even the soft ones. So of course they will beat Camille Common's lap time of 1 minute 39.5, but still he will have those 25 points. He will be then 9 points ahead of Andonator and 10 points ahead of Kevin Bolash, and that's of course without the point for the fastest lap. So he will lead the championship going into Russia. That's good for him. Really good for him. And he has come into the league like 5 races ago or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And that, yeah, no, very impressive. Of course, Kevin had only participated in one more race than Camille going into this race. He was here for one race longer. He was here for the British Grand Prix, which I don't believe Camille was here for. I wasn't here for that one either, so I didn't catch it, I'm afraid. Jezza has had to let... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just saying that I think Camille came into the league for the German Grand Prix.
Yeah, okay, that is what I thought. So that's... Kruzix and Shad both getting time penalties in quick succession there. Quite a few. That's at least Kruzix's second 3-second time penalty. Shad really close behind Jezza at the moment. Needs to clear the Renault as quickly as possible. Richie B's already been able to get past the Renault driver, and Shad needs to get past him as quick as possible so that he can continue to chase down Richie B. It's been quite a long battle between those two drivers, and Shad gets really deep on the brakes there, bumps into the Renault driver, barges him out of the way entirely. If there was some damage modelling on the side pods, that might have been a DNF for one of those drivers. That was a pretty hefty hit from Shad, but as it happens, he's just been able to move his way past Jezza, and he forces the door open for Ripson as well, who capitalises. Jezza down to 7th position, and we've seen Iceman basically acting like lap traffic whenever those guys came up behind him and just diving out of the way as quick as possible, getting out of the throttle to let them past. Maybe it was so he could avoid incidents like that between Jezza and Shad, but Jezza hasn't come off that badly from it in the end.
Yeah, and I've checked the penalties, and Camille Common has no penalties. He only has 1 corner cutting warning.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive. Seriously impressive, given that almost everyone else has had a penalty already. I don't want to check everyone because, well, it will take a lot of time, and we don't have that much time, although we still have 14 laps to go. But yeah, I think it's the most impressive corner cutting record right now. Maybe lack of corner cutting from Kamil Common is a better word.
Yeah, no, to be avoiding all of those corner cutting warnings and track extension warnings, of course, and to still be going comfortably faster than anyone else in the field really does prove that he is completely dialed into this track, completely switched on in the Red Bull. And it's a good thing he managed to do what he did in qualifying in the end. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to see this from him. If he'd had to start from the back of the grid, he would have had to battle his way all the way through, and unlikely we would have really got an idea of how fast he is. But this way, thankfully, he managed to get a couple of laps in qualifying at the end, at the very end of the session, and has been able to prove what he can do in that Red Bull. JSR now 15 seconds behind him. Kruzik's now 18 seconds behind him, and Kruzik's is probably the closest contender to Kamil going into the latter stages of this race. Will Richie B and Shad be able to take that position away from Kruzik's? Ripson as well, not far behind Shad, still looking to make it a three-way fight for the bottom step of the podium.
Iceman comes into the pit lane and Schultes comes into P8, and Iceman got a 5-second time penalty for extending track limits, interestingly. But yeah, when you said about Kamil starting from the back of the field, well, I thought that maybe we would have got a Verstappen-esque charge through the field, so maybe we would still have a very interesting race, but we would have seen how fast Kamil Common is, but we wouldn't have seen such a big gap between him and the second placed car. Because remember that, well, don't remember what, anything. Sorry.
Fair enough.
I thought I was going to say something, but I forget what.
Understandable. Ripson now still really close behind Shad. He's basically been pushing the Frenchman around this lap. Front wing to rear wing, very, very close indeed. Richie B looks like he's slowed down a little bit on the exit of the hairpin there. Had a bit of a rough moment under traction, and Shad has closed down the gap a little bit, almost to within DRS range of the Toro Rosso driver. And Richie B, as I say that, picks up a 3-second time penalty on the exit there, so that's not good news for him. Shad also has at least one, though, so it's going to have to be... We're going to have to, you know, make sure that we temper our expectations when it comes to people crossing the line, because there are so many penalties throughout the field now that it's really this finishing order isn't necessarily going to remain the way it is on track, and that's something we're going to have to be prepared for. Shad dropping a little bit further away from Richie B now, so Richie B having a good second half of the lap, and Ripson still close behind the Frenchman, but not close enough to do anything about it at this moment in time. Jezza into the pits in the Renault as well. He's battling with Iceman and pretty much no one else. They're a long way off the back of the field. They're going to be strapping on that set of medium tyres, which will mean they're probably going to be two of the fastest drivers towards the end of this race. JSR will probably be faster once he comes into the pits, but it's a big mountain for them to climb at the moment.
It's like Mount Everest, even. Maybe that big of a mountain.
Oh, here comes Ripson, though, down the inside of Shad, and there's contact, and Shad's round. Can he keep it out of the wall? Yes, he can. It was a big dive bomb from Ripson, and he knows it. He's letting the Frenchman straight back through, so they've both lost time to Richie B. So that's a bit of a blessing in disguise for the Toro Rosso driver, but Shad was forced into a spin there by the McLaren driver, and Ripson acknowledging his mistake and letting Shad back through. Good sportsmanship, but he was really hot on the brakes there.
Yeah, and look right now how much slower than Kamil Common is JSR. It's 20 seconds, and I think he's lost some 3 seconds on this lap already, maybe 2. I'm exaggerating a bit, but he's losing heaps of time right now. I think it's time to pit for JSR, and really I am curious what will be the pace of Kruzik's. Of course, he is faster than JSR, but his tires are only, what, 4 laps younger than JSR's.
Yeah, JSR's actually had a rather good performance in this race, as he finally does head into the pits. The final driver to head into the pits in this race, but he was so far ahead of Jezza and Iceman before heading into the pits. He really didn't have to worry about an undercut from either of those drivers, and he has been having solid pace on those hard tyres to go 19 laps into the race on them and still be in second place when he came into the pits. That's a good performance from JSR, particularly considering he qualified down in, I think, somewhere towards the very bottom of the grid. It was at least 13th. It might even have been lower. So he obviously didn't quite have a representative qualifying session, and if he could have qualified a bit better, we could have seen a very interesting race from JSR in that Mercedes. As it is, he comes back out of the pits in 7th place and will be looking to close down Schulte's, but it's a 17.5 second gap and only 10 laps to do it in. It's a big, big ask for the Mercedes driver.
I think another too big mountain to climb for him. But still, he may try. He may try to set the fastest lap times, of course. Right now, it belongs to Iceman, who has closed down on Jezza. Maybe he has been just behind the Czech Renault driver. But yeah, let's see what will be the pace of JSL. Let's see what will be the pace of Krusix, but I think he is slower than Kamil Koman, and right now he is a whopping 23 seconds behind the Red Bull driver. That's, as we've said, that's astonishing. That's out of this world.
Honestly, this might be the most dominating, lead that I'm not going to say a win just yet, but the most dominating lead that I have seen in all my time commentating in AOR. I don't think I've ever seen a driver pull out 20 plus seconds to second place at any point during the race. So that is really quite something from Camille. If he can just hold on to it towards the end of the race, this is going to be one of the best drives I have seen on this game. And really hats off to him, because Singapore is a tough place to do it. Really, really tough circuit. And he is making it seem like child's play at the moment.
Yeah, I think in the AOR, it's, as you've said, the biggest lead that any driver has built. I've seen, in some races, I've seen bigger leads, around 30 seconds, that the leader could have pitted 2 laps from from the end of the race. Iceman sets another fastest lap, meanwhile. But yeah, the lead driver could have pitted like 2 laps from the end and set the fastest lap time, but because he had a big gap over the second. And I remember I've seen one race, but it was around Monaco, that a driver has lapped the entire field. But
wow.
that was a lower tier of our national league, let's say, like bigger league in Poland, but still like a lower tier. So everyone else was crashing, and the guy, he had a good pace.
Speaking of crashing, Iceman into the back of Jezza there. That might have given the Renault a puncture if that had been modelled into the game, but it has not, so Jezza gets away with it once again. 2 incidents where Jezza has been hit by other drivers and hasn't suffered any damage from it when perhaps he should have done. But nevertheless, currently sitting in 8th position still. Not anything he did wrong, of course. That was just Iceman going into the back of him. Jezza had a bit of a messy opening sector of the lap, and Iceman found himself much quicker than the Renault driver in that first sector, but wasn't able to make it work and had to back out of it really sharpish to avoid any damage to his front wing, which it looks like he has managed to avoid at least, so that's good news for the Macedonian. Ripson still really close behind Shad as well. He's going to have a chance on the exit of turn 4 through turn 5 and up towards turn 6 here, but he's not really close enough at the moment. Committed through turn 4 itself, but Shad calm and collected through there as well. And it's not going to be this lap for Ripson, and he's starting to run out of time, though there are still quite a few laps left to go.
Remember when we were in doubt that JSR could close down on Schultes? Well, he is now 12.5 seconds behind the Red Bull drivers, only 2 laps after he has pitted. He has the fastest lap time of the race of 1 minute 38.584, and he is lapping some 2.5 seconds faster than Schultes per. So that he may catch the Red Bull driver with a few laps to spare.
Interestingly, in chat, Andinator joining us in chat. Hello, Andinator, saying that because of Kruzix's wing damage and having to box on lap 3, that he thinks that Kruzix would have had the same pace as Camille, if not better, in this race. And that is a bold claim, considering, of course, Kruzix has had a very, very compromised race. There's no denying that. But to be 26 seconds behind Camille. Camille has had such good pace around here compared to the entirety of the rest of the field. I'd be very surprised. And Kruzix's race was already kind of a bit compromised by running on those soft tyres in qualifying rather than on the medium tyres. But evidently it seems like you guys at Williams, you, Andinator and Kruzix, had a bit of a plan there. So maybe You could have made some fireworks happen if it hadn't been for the incident, but we will never know, unfortunately. Kruzix, though, currently sitting in second position. That still is a very good result. Like, even if he comes across the line in second, just because it's 26.5 seconds behind the leader doesn't mean it's worth any fewer points than usual. So he would be happy with the second position, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And Richie B is not catching the Williams driver as well, so I think he is safe there.
Jezza into the wall. In the Renault, not that much damage to his front wing. He's lost the front left end plate, but other than that, well, I should say the left end plate, they're all front. But he has lost the left end plate there. Iceman did go past him. They were very close on track. I'm tentative about saying that it would have been an incident between them, but you never know. And they were battling. We did already see them come together once with Iceman trying to get past the Renault drivers. So hopefully that wasn't a crash between the two of them, but we'll have to wait and see.
But remember, that's a weird place to crash out on your own, you know? I mean,
it is.
On the power there, you are on the power some 100 meters earlier, so he would have spawned there if it was on his own. So I'm not sure, of course, but there might have been some touch between them. Maybe a racing incident, of course, but it might have happened, unfortunately. Still, Jezza looks to be safe in that P9. His pace will be slower, of course, without this left wing end plate, but he is 61 seconds ahead of Grzesiu. We're not counting Hooper because he is out of the session for like 20 laps already. So yeah, this P9 is really, really safe for him, and I think Kruzix has hit the cliff on the hard tires because Richie B has made 2 seconds or maybe 1.5 seconds in the last lap or so, and he is 30 seconds behind Kamil Komon. Ribson still behind Shad, and JSR now only 7.5 seconds behind Schultes. He will catch the Red Bull driver according to my maths, but my maths may be bad, really bad.
Indeed. So, just checking chat once again, Andonator's still in there, and he's saying that Kruzix would have wanted to box on lap 5 or 6 anyway, and of course he did make it to lap 5 when he came into the pits, or I suppose it was the end of lap 4, so he hasn't been that compromised in terms of his strategy. The wing damage he had and the fact that he had to change his front wing meant that he didn't have a chance to undercut Kamil Komon, but he still would have been struggling with these ancient hard tyres that he has around here now, and as you said, he really has hit the cliff. Richie B getting closer and closer by the timing loop here. Every mini sector, Richie B gets about half a tenth closer to Kruzix, and now he's just about almost within DRS range. Can he get there in time as he heads through the final couple of corners now? The double left-hander, he's not quite in range for DRS in the start-finish straight, but he still has plenty of time to try and catch up to the Williams driver up ahead, and Kruzix still has 6 laps to go on those tyres. Grzesiu, another 3-second time penalty for him, and he's not actually catching Hooper as quickly as I'm sure he'd like to be doing. But nevertheless, he's probably not quite got his heart as much in this race as he would have done under normal circumstances. Ripson dropping a little bit further away from Shad at the moment. So the Racing Point driver, the one remaining Racing Point driver in this race after our championship leader had to retire from the race after crashing into the car of Danny, which was stuck, marooned in the middle of the road, nowhere to go. And Bolash Kevin couldn't help but hit him. A really unfortunate incident for the champion, or I shouldn't say the championship leader, because he's not Andonator as the championship leader, but the championship challenger, Bolash Kevin, out of the race. And the championship leader, of course, Andonator, was also out of this race. Had another incident of his own, which involved his teammate as well. Kruzix clipping the rear end of his teammate after Andonator went into the wall, and after that Andonator came into the pits but didn't really have the pace and retired from the race thereafter. So not a good race for anyone at the top of the championship apart from Kamil Komon. 3rd place in the championship and 1st place in this race, and I'm just going to give him a little bit of airtime here because he deserves it. Hardly seen the Red Bull driver during this race because he's been nowhere near any other drivers. He's 31 seconds up the road from Kruzix at the moment, a ridiculous gap in the lead of this race, and so you're tempted never to look at him, but we should at least give him a little bit of airtime, I feel.
Well, we will give him a little bit of airtime towards the end of the final lap, for sure, but yeah, we can show him, this is the Red Bull driver who has won, maybe not has won, but is winning this race by a country mile right now at least. Grzesiu has come into the pit lane yet again. A long wait there before the mechanics take off the hard tire and put the soft compound. He will have a chance to at least take away a point for the fastest lap, because he will finish inside the top 10. Remember, we're not counting in Cooper, so Grzesiu is really the 10th driver in this race, and he might take away that final lap, fastest lap point, of course. And as I'm saying that, Jezza also came into the pit lane to change the front wing, change his tires, and try to do the same.
Yep, sensible from both of those drivers. Absolutely nothing to lose by making that decision. We'll have to wait and see whether they have enough pace on those soft tires to take the fastest lap away, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are indeed able to do so. Have to wait and see, though. A couple of laps before they'll be setting those lap times. Ripson still close behind Shad. The only battle out here on track at the moment, as Richie B seems to have hit a bit of a wall behind Kruzix. Still at 1.1, 1.2 seconds behind the German in the Williams, and the Dutchman really needs to start closing him down quicker than that. He closed him down really quickly from about 3 seconds to about 1.2 seconds, and then as soon as he reached that point, he hit the dirty air zone and hasn't been able to get any closer. Perhaps he's also feeling the wear on his tyres as well. 16 laps now on that set of hard tyres, and that is a pretty good effort regardless, so they will be getting pretty worn out themselves, even though they are the joint youngest hard tyres on the circuit at the moment, with Schultes, the second Red Bull driver, who's had a very, very quiet race indeed, down in 6th at the moment.
And Ripson takes, I think, another 3-second time penalty. I can check it, of course, but I think it was another one. And yeah, it's his second time penalty. Meanwhile, Kamil Komoń still has one warning.
Yeah.
It's a one warning even, not a carrying penalty. So it's very likely that those 32 seconds that are right now, they will get even bigger at the finish line after counting in the penalties.
Indeed, yeah, and we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Ripson, well, if he has 6 seconds of time penalties, he might feel the need to get past Shad. Shad has at least 3 seconds, I've noticed. I think probably 6.
Sorry to cut in, because someone is taking that risk. He will pit for the soft compound tires, and he will try to set the fastest lap of the race. I was telling about it earlier, that I've seen some races like that. The lead driver was building up a huge lead, that he could have taken that free pit stop and set the fastest lap time, and I think he will set that fastest lap time. Where is Kruzix? Kruzix has entered the start-finish straight, and let's see what will be the gap between him and Kamil Komoń. It will be around 7, maybe 6.5 seconds, but Kruzix is on incredibly old hard tires right now.
That is audacity from Kamil Komoń to come into the pits. 2 laps left in the race, or 3 laps left in the race.
Sorry to cut in again, because JSR has overtaken Schultes. So the Mercedes driver has done what we thought was impossible. He has made up 17 seconds on Schultes, and he still has 3 laps left in this race. But I think it's impossible for him to catch Ripson. I think it's too far away from him. But still, it will be a great race for JSR with that P6.
Absolutely, and everyone who's been on these old hard tyres has been struggling on them so much. Richie B getting really close to Kruzix now. He's going to be struggling more than anyone else with 24 laps on that set of hard tyres, and he must be aching for a different set of tyres. He's wishing he could do what Kamil, Iceman, Jezza and Grzesiu have all done and head into the pits for a set of soft tyres to finish out the race on, but he cannot do that because he has Richie B in such close attendance at the moment in the Toro Rosso behind him, and Richie B's tyres aren't in much better condition, but 7 laps younger, and he should have a significant advantage at this stage of the race. But the old hard tyres have been such a problem for these drivers. They've been struggling so hard to keep the pace with them, and you can see how quickly Camille is getting away from Kruzix now. This will be his fastest lap attempt. I'm going to stick on board with him for now unless something else dramatic happens further down the field as we watch him try and take the fastest lap in this race. 4 drivers putting their hats into the ring to take it. Who has it at the moment? Let's see. It is currently sitting with Jezza in the Renault. A 138.3 is the target lap, and considering Camille did a 139.5, only 1.2 seconds slower on the hard tyres a long time ago now, it looks like he is going to be able to get rid of that. Shad and Ripson, they're battling finally, and Ripson's got past him. It looks like Shad lit up the rear tyres on the exit of turn 4 there and has had to cede the position to Ripson. Grezju into the pits once again, a 5-second time penalty for him. That's his second one of those of the race. Richie B really close behind Kruzix now as well. I did want to stick on board with Camille for his fastest lap attempt, but now the battling is getting too intense just behind him, and these are still 4 high points paying positions. Kruzix still ahead of Richie B for the moment, but it seems like a matter of time. But is there enough time for the Dutchman to put himself up in a P2?
And let's see, because we will have a big fight for the fastest lap time. Iceman, Jezza, and Camille Coleman. It looks like a big qualifying shootout between them, but I think Camille Coleman has the best chance to set the fastest lap time. He has improved by over 1.2 seconds in 2 sectors, so let's see what will be his lap time right now. 1 minute 36.335.
Just a bit.
Which is, yeah, just a bit, which is like just 2 seconds faster than Jezza and JSR have managed during the entire race. Actually, well, JSR has only had medium tires for his use. Jezza is on soft tires, and he is not capable of setting that quick of a lap time. So yeah, I think we won't see a 30-second gap between Camille Coleman and Kruzix. We only will see some sort of maybe 18 seconds between them, but Camille Coleman will take that.
Here comes Richie B though, sorry. Kruzix having to go defensive into turn 6 here. He can't get it around the outside though. Good defense from the Williams driver. It's the final lap of the race here, and Richie B needs to get past him as quick as he possibly can. I don't know the penalty situation between them off the top of my head, but I don't think Richie B has many penalties. He might have 3 or 6 seconds. I'm not sure what Kruzix is sitting on, but I think he's got a similar amount. Richie B might even have fewer than that, so he might be pretty comfortable at the moment, sitting behind the Williams. They have the same amount of penalties. This is battling for position, and Kruzix with his tail wagging all the way across the Anderson Bridge. This is going to be Richie B's last major try now. Down towards the right-hander here. There's a significant braking zone. He's got to think about sending it, but he doesn't. He's just too far back. Has Kruzix done enough to hold on to the position now? Ripson looks like he's comfortably ahead of Shad for the moment. The McLaren is going to come across the line in 4th, barring any disaster. And Richie B trying to stick his nose up the inside, giving Kruzix something to think about. But there goes Camille Coleman across the line. What a performance from the Polish driver in the Red Bull to take the win by 19 seconds after performing an extra pit stop with only 3 laps of the race to go. Dominating drive indeed. Richie B now doesn't look like he's been able to do it. Kruzix has done enough in the Williams with a monster 27 lap stint on that set of hard tyres. Meanwhile, Shad and Ripson have switched positions right at the last. Ripson must have had an issue into the final couple of corners.
JSR is into P4 after the penalties are taken into account.
Unbelievable clean driving from the Mercedes driver. That he's made that his hallmark. He's a really clean driver. He stays away from the penalties, and it's really benefited him here. And it looks like this is going to be your finishing order because the rest of the gaps are so huge between the rest of the drivers.
Wow, I mean, JSR has... I can't say he was my driver of the day because we have Camille Coleman who has won this race by 22.1 seconds. He has had only one single warning, and he got it on lap 1. That was unbelievable, of course. And we are waiting still for Iceman and Jezza. They are finishing the race. Iceman doesn't improve, and Jezza, and Grzesiu has... he is starting to do some donuts. 1 point for Grzesiu, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Sort
Worthy of donuts,
lucky point,
I'm sure.
but yeah, sort of a lucky point, but still, he will take it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jezza, what happened there? I don't know. But Jezza, okay, my game has lagged, but Jezza has finished the race. My game has sort of crashed, but
Ooh.
yeah.
Okay. Well, good thing that didn't happen any sooner. But yeah, Jezza coming across the line to claim 9th place. Of course, Grezju currently in 11th place according to the game, but the fact that Hooper has been an AI car for the whole race means that he will not be eligible to come in 10th position, and as a result, Grezju will inherit that position away from him. But here on the top step of the podium, Camille Common, 3 race wins in a row, and he is stamping his authority on the championship now as he moves himself, I think, up into the lead of the championship, unless I'm very, very much mistaken. So, really, really good stuff from him. Great drive, especially today. This has been his strongest drive of the season. And honestly, when he DNF'd in Hungary earlier in the season, when he had that issue with the tyres, he didn't strap on a set of wet tyres when he wanted to. Had some mediums instead, I believe, and he DNF'd from that race as a result of that. If he hadn't done that, he'd be even further in the race lead at the moment. And his record so far in the season has been absolutely astonishing. If you get rid of that DNF, his lowest finishing position has been a 2nd position in his debut race in the F3 League. And we saw him duking with Bolash Kevin that whole race for the win. But here, he didn't have to duke with anyone. He comfortably won this race at a canter. Kruzix coming 2nd in the end after really, really struggling to make those hard tyres work, but he held on to it. Great drive from him to do that. Richie B didn't quite have enough to take the 2nd position away, but he'll be happy with a podium after his win yesterday in the AOR F2 Sprint League, and JSR with an excellent drive to keep it clean and to run the contra strategy up into 4th. Shad 5th, Ripson 6th, Schulte 7th, Iceman, Jezza, and then Hooper in 10th. But of course, he will not have that 10th position. That will be taken away from him by Grezju.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that wasn't the most exciting race in Singapore we've had ever, but still a decent one, and with the best performance I've seen in AOR in a long time.
Absolutely.
It's like a good conclusion of this race. Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, yeah,
it was a different sort of spectacle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it was a spectacle, nevertheless, to see Camille come on do that at the front of the field. And we saw quite a lot of chaos, quite a lot of incidents, quite a lot of people hitting the walls, carbon fibre going flying everywhere, a lot of retirements as well. And I think it was a result of those retirements that meant that we had so few drivers battling towards the end of the race. Only really Shad and Ripson battling for the majority of the middle and then towards the end of that race, and then Richie B and Kruzix trying to do it right at the end as well. But if we had a few more drivers throughout the rest of the race, if Bolash Kevin had still been in the race, we might have seen him battling with the likes of Kruzix, that's for sure. Nevertheless, it was a good race, and thank you very, very much for joining me. I don't think we're going to have any interviews for you today. I think we're just going to end it here. So thank you very much for joining me, Julio.
It was a pleasure as always. Thank you.
And yeah, we will see you guys, and thank you guys also very much for watching, of course, and sorry for any issues with the stream today. I hope it wasn't too bad, as I had some issues with my PC and we had some issues with the lobby, but we just about made it through. So thank you guys for bearing with me, and we will see you next weekend. Goodbye.